Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Saturday, October 24th, 2020. I'm Andrew Hansen here once again with Sugar Shane Caldwell as we get ready for the wide receiver tight end show. There's two positions, Shane, so it's a little bit hard. It is the week 7 main slate version of the wide receiver tight end show, and there's a lot of guys in juicy matchups here, Shane. Are you excited to get after it?
Yeah, there's so many good ones to choose from. You really got to narrow down the field and figure out which ones you want to go with for roster construction wise here. And there's a ton of great stacking options here as well. So as we talked about a little bit on some of the earlier videos, this is going to be a high scoring slate with a lot of great stacks and a lot of great plays here with excellent matchups. So let's get into some of these awesome matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. So, speaking of the high totals, want to thank our presenting sponsor here, betus.com.pa. When you go there, use the promo code Coach Talk and you get a 125% match on your first deposit. They've got all your sports wagering and casino action. And there are now 12 games on the main slate with the addition of Tampa and Las Vegas, at least on DraftKings. And there are 7 games over 50 for the totals. So there are going to be some shootouts here, and we gotta zero in on the best plays, Shane. So who are we looking at the top of the board for wide receivers?
I mean, you got to love Davante Adams. He's coming back, came back off the injury last week. Really tough matchup. Tampa Bay played him excellent on defense there, so it limited his upside. But Davante Adams is a DFS fantasy explosion like waiting to happen here. He's by far one of the most talented receivers in the game here. He's going up against Houston. Pretty weak in the secondary. Again, not elite pass rush. So he's going to get heavily targeted. Aaron Jones, their best running back is out in this game. So Davante Adams will be heavily targeted and really efficient here. And he's still reasonably priced because of the fact that he's been out injured for a long time and he hasn't really, went off since he's came back. So this is his breakout game right here where he's healthy. He's in a great matchup. He's going up against Bradley Roby, who's been decent, but Bradley Roby is beatable. And I don't think Bradley Roby's faced anyone like Davante Adams. And a combination of Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers with their timing and their precision and the route running and everything that they do, it's too good to stop when they're both healthy and running on all cylinders. So definitely fire up Davante Adams this week for a huge ceiling game, and I think he's worth paying up for.
Okay. I'm going to stay in that expensive tier and go with the guy who's even more expensive on both sides, DeAndre Hopkins. I love his matchup against Seattle. You can't get any better than that on paper. They're number 32 against the pass. Over under is 54.5 on betus.com.pa. Hoping for a shootout. Last week Kirk got those 2 touchdowns, and Drake ran wild against the Cowboys. They didn't really need Hopkins. And to me, it looked like he was sort of cruising a little bit. But I think he steps up here in prime time. I think he's more involved in the game plan. They get it to him with the great matchup. So I'll have Hopkins in a bunch of my lineups.
All right. And then the next guy I like that's also very expensive, another guy in a good spot here. Looking at Calvin Ridley going against my Detroit Lions here. Most likely he'll be running against Jeffrey Okudah, who's been okay, but overall is rated really poor in coverage, and he's still learning as a rookie cornerback that's been thrown in the mix here. Detroit's trying to still figure out trying to get pressure on the quarterback, running more blitzes, but Matt Ryan's pretty smart, and if he catches them in those blitzes, he can definitely hit some of those deep shots to Calvin Ridley. And Calvin Ridley just, with Julio Jones playing good now, they're going to have to pay a lot of attention to him in terms of, using safeties on Julio Jones to stop him. So I think Calvin Ridley's going to be wide open a lot, and he's going to have one of those monster games. And I think it's going to be a high scoring game. Both offenses will be able to score, which is going to lead to a lot of passing here. So definitely look for Calvin Ridley to pay off that value, that value there. He's 8,400 on FanDuel. He's expensive and 7,300 on DK. So I think you'll get him at lower ownership because people aren't going to want to pay up for him as much. Because they're worried about Julio Jones, which is understandable. Julio Jones is a great play, but I think Calvin Ridley's going to outproduce Julio Jones this week at a lower ownership and at a similar price. So I'm definitely really loving Calvin Ridley here.
Excellent. Well, the next 2 guys I want to mention are on the same team, and they're even cheaper than Ridley. It's the Seattle tandem of DK Metcalf and and Tyler Lockett, and they're in that matchup on the other side of Hopkins. And we know that in GPPs, it is a tremendous strategy to game stack in one of these high totals. Hope that it stays close. Hope that it's back and forth. So if you're going to use one of the quarterbacks in this game and you want to go with Hopkins, then I recommend you go with either Metcalf or Lockett. You could go with both. I'm leaning towards Lockett right now. If I can only play one, he is cheaper on DraftKings, and I think they'll game plan for him here. You can really attack Arizona in the slot. And on paper, Arizona's pass defense is number 13 this season, but I think that's a little bit misleading because they've played Washington, they've played the Jets, they played Andy Dalton in primetime. We know Andy Dalton in primetime is awful. So I don't think they're as good as that number suggests. So I'm going to get a lot of exposure to this Seattle passing attack.
Yeah, and also when the Detroit Lions played Arizona, they got a lead on them and they just ran the ball like crazy, and they didn't even try to really pass on them because they just had the lead and they just ran out the clock. So they weren't facing much passing volume in that game either. So yeah, a lot of their games that makes their ranking a little bit deceptive against the pass. They're really not as good as that. And Russell Wilson can carve them up with these guys.
Isn't it funny how everything just sort of circles back to Detroit?
It always does.
In the NFL.
Exactly.
There's just whether you want it to or not, somehow it does. Especially on this show.
I tell you what, man. Yeah, the Lions Super Bowl. Yeah, this year's the year, man. Hey, well, how about let's transition right into the next Detroit guy then. Go ahead. Okay. Yep, we're going to transition right in. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
I'll go with Golladay. Yeah, I'm on Golladay this week, and I'm curious if you are because he's on that other side from Ridley. So again, if you want to stack that game, the over/under on BetUS is 55. Golladay is in an absolute smash spot. He's under 7,000 on DraftKings, under 8,000 on FanDuel. So again, the question is, will Patricia go to the air enough for Golladay to pay off that price tag? I think he will. What do you think?
Yeah, he's going to have a really good target share here. Like I said, they're going to have to pass a little more than they did last week, and he's in a great matchup. Patricia knows, going up against, Kendall Sheffield, it's popping off as like the number one matchup of like all the pro football, rankings, wide receiver grades versus coverage grades this week. So Golladay is going to be warrant some heavy ownership here, and yeah, he'll get enough volume. And he's just he's like a 2-touchdown game, over 100-yard 2-touchdown game waiting to happen here, big time. I mean, he's by far the superstar. Another thing about Golladay is he's, not that he wasn't motivated before, but he's in a contract year, and they've been negotiating a new long-term big money deal with him, and they've been trying to get that done. So he's definitely motivated and focused to have a blow-up game, so have some really big games to prove that he's worth that huge new contract. So if you like a little extra narratives, Golladay is definitely, he's going to get those 50-50 balls. I call him Mr. 50-50. If he gets enough of those 50-50 balls, he's going to cash in. They're going to have to back up the Brinks truck to him there. So see, like you said, everything circles back to these Detroit guys, no matter what,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
So who are you looking at next here?
Here's another guy here in a great matchup is Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs has been almost uncoverable this year, and now he's going up against the New York Jets secondary. New York Jets don't really have much of a pass rush, and they got a weak secondary. And Buffalo isn't afraid to pour it on and blow teams out. That's the thing I kind of like about them. They don't really care. They'll put up 30, 40 points on you real quick with Josh Allen, especially in these type of matchups. And the Jets might be able to score on their defense on the other side a little bit with Sam Darnold coming back. So this is setting up really good for Stefon Diggs. And I think you're going to get him at lower ownership because he's fairly expensive. And people are going to these other players that we've been talking about, which are also excellent plays. But you can make an argument for Stefon Diggs being one of the top receivers this year, and he's paired up with a great, quarterback in Josh Allen, who's a lot better accuracy with those deep balls. So Stefon Diggs has been, great run after the catch, great deep ball guy, red zone target. I mean, I think he's due for a huge game here against the New York Jets. So definitely like him as well.
Okay. Next guy for me is Keenan Allen, specifically on DraftKings at 6,200. He's a PPR monster going up against Jacksonville, number 25 against the pass. And, this is one of those options where if you don't want to get all of your receivers from Seattle, Arizona game, which I might in a lineup or two, he's a guy to get earlier in the day, even though it's the 425 game. So Keenan Allen coming back from injury. Hopefully he'll be a little bit lower owned, but I do like that price tag on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think Keenan Allen's a great play against Jacksonville this week. Another guy that I really like, he's pretty affordable, especially on DraftKings. His price really looks really underpriced on DraftKings, is Terry McLaurin. He's at home going up against the Dallas secondary. I don't think I need to explain to people how bad the Dallas defense has been this year. I think that's well documented. And Terry McLaurin, he's faced some pretty tough matchups, some shadow coverage matchups. I know Kyle Allen's not a great, quarterback, but he's good enough and smart enough to throw the ball to Terry McLaurin. And most likely Terry McLaurin's going to get a ton of targets, and I expect better efficiency catching more of those targets against this weak secondary. Excellent run after the catch ability, just a big play waiting to happen. So I expect Terry McLaurin to have a huge game here. If you can get him for 5,800 on DK, I think it's way underpriced. And he's definitely a guy that I'll be looking to target this week.
Okay. Just one more wide receiver for me to mention here. That's Deontay Johnson for Pittsburgh going up against Tennessee. They're number 29 against the pass. And Johnson is 4,200 on DraftKings. Again, just too cheap with a guy that can catch a bunch of passes in a great matchup. So he is the next guy for me.
And I'll just throw out a couple quick guys that are near minimal price because of injury situations and the good matchups here. These guys are in play if you want to just punt a minimum price guy. You got Tre'Quan Smith for New Orleans Saints going up against Carolina. He typically runs from the slot, and the Carolina is vulnerable in the slot coverage position here. And Tre'Quan Smith has had really good games with Michael Thomas out. He's had a couple good games there, and now Emmanuel Sanders is out as well, which means Tre'Quan Smith is the main guy there for wide receivers in terms of having rapport with Drew Brees. So I think he's going to get quite a few targets here and definitely has a good game, and he's near minimal price. Another guy that popped up is the New York Jets are going to have to pass a lot because we're expecting them to be down against the Buffalo Bills, as we just explained. So Brashad Perriman is back healthy now. Sam Darnold is likely to play. Now, Sam Darnold is shaky at times, but he can throw an occasional good deep ball. So I look for him to connect with Brashad Perriman and a couple of those deep balls and also get some work underneath because Jamison Crowder is out this week. So Brashad Perriman's a really talented guy, and he did okay last week. I think he's due for a breakout, and you can get him if you look at his price on DraftKings, 3,700, and on FanDuel, 4,800. Also excellent price. So that'll allow you to get up some of these big dollar guys. It's just a matter if you can trust Brashad Perriman, but I actually do think I trust him in the spot here, even though it's a New York Jet. It's kind of tough to trust it, but at that price, I think he's definitely worth a shot here.
Okay, excellent. Well, that should get everybody a good feel for the wide receivers we're interested in. Before we get to the tight ends here, just a couple things. First of all, membership here at DFS Coach Talk. If you want to join, one of the major benefits is you can get our lineups on Sunday, our full lineups on FanDuel. We give out a cash lineup, 2 GPP lineups. On DraftKings, we give out the coach's clipboard with core plays and pivots. And then we also cover every showdown slate with full lineups on FanDuel and core plays on DraftKings, Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, the primetime slate Sunday, Monday. So go to dfscoachtalk.com, grab one of our memberships. We'll get you into our Discord, give out those lineups about 45 minutes before kickoff. So we'd love to have you. And then speaking of memberships and patronage, we invite you to listen to this terrific offer from our partners at betus.com.pa.
Wake up, sports bettors. Sports are in high gear at betus.com, so put down the beer and make every sporting event more exciting by putting stakes on the line at BetUS. Earn bragging rights over your friends as you rake in the cash from each week's betting action. But don't settle for any other book. Choose America's favorite sportsbook with over 25 trusted years in the industry, BetUS. You need a sportsbook with integrity and longevity, but more importantly, you need a sportsbook that pays. BetUS has your game with action on football, baseball, basketball, MMA, golf, horse racing, and even esports. No other sportsbook welcomes newcomers like BetUS with their jaw-dropping sign-up bonuses. Sign up now with promo code CoachTalk for 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. The best in the biz. Now you have the best book in the business with the best DFS provider in the business, Coach Talk. Create your account to make point spread bets, futures bets, prop bets, entertainment bets, live bets, and more. No other sportsbook is as committed to their members as BetUS. Sign up now and get in on the winning side of the ball.
Welcome back, and make sure to use that promo code CoachTalk, all one word, when you make that first deposit at betus.com.pa. Thank you very much to those partners. Now, Shane, it's time for the tight end portion of the show here as we continue to build out our lineups on DraftKings and FanDuel. So where are you looking first?
If you can get some of these value plays in there, running back and some of those wide receivers, you can pay up at tight end and get Travis Kelce at a pretty decent ownership here, because there's all these great value plays. Tight end position is obviously kind of rough this year, but I think Travis Kelce against Denver, they're not really good at covering tight ends. And I think that they're going to go to him often. We talked about earlier in the week, it's expecting to be really cold, a lot of snow going on in this game in Denver. So we got an early, winter game here, basically in the fall time. And I can see them having a lot of design plays for Kelce and hitting him over the middle for those short passes and tight end screens. And I like his run after the catch ability and just how physical he is at breaking tackles and run after the catch in a type of game where it's cold weather, physical kind of game, running in the snow, versus, the wide receivers for Kansas City on those deep routes and crossing routes. I could see the snow kind of throwing that off a little bit, the Tyreek Hill type players. So that's why I like Kelce to get a ton of targets here and be able to pay off his expensive price tag here. I mean, $7,900 on FanDuel is expensive, but that's going to drive his ownership down, which could be good. And if a lot of these other tight ends flop, that can create an edge for you. So that's why I'm kind of looking at Travis Kelce this week. I think it's a big time Kelce week, and you'll get him at lower ownership.
Yeah, you got to trust him more than those deep guys in those wintry conditions. So that'll be fun to watch that one play out here in October. Next one for me, though, is going to be in that dome environment, Detroit, Atlanta. Once again, that high total over 50 on BetUS, and it's your boy Hawkinson. Atlanta's number 31 against the pass, and it is the second best matchup for tight ends as well. So Hawkinson, man, just feed him the rock, get him in the end zone twice, and he'll make us happy because I'm going to have some ownership there.
Yeah, he's looking like in a good spot. I think he's going to be matched up against Deion Jones, who's a pretty fast linebacker there, who's pretty good. I think Atlanta's defense looked pretty tough last week, but I did see Minnesota hit them for a couple deep shots with like Irv Smith, and I seen Kyle Rudolph pop a little bit last week against them as well, who's older. So obviously Hawkinson is a really athletic, big, strong tight end here, and the Lions need to keep getting him more and more involved. They seem to like always cap him at like 4 or 5 targets, and they're like, sorry, okay, you're done for the game. But right. I think that they're going to get him involved more and more each week. So I could see him, if he can get like 7 or 8 targets, and I think his efficiency, he'll catch, probably like about 6 catches and around, 70 to 80 yards. I could see him doing that and getting the touchdown. So that's the game you need out of him. His price has remained low because he hasn't had the blow up game, but I think he's due for a good game here. And this is a great game environment for it. So I'm definitely for it.
Well, if you're going to pay down from Kelce and Hawkinson, where are you looking?
I think Henry's looking really good. Hunter Henry for, I think that they're going against Jacksonville, and the LA Chargers are looking like a really high team total here and looking like they probably blow them out. And a lot of that will be through that passing game. And Herbert definitely has a pretty good connection early on with Hunter Henry. He's a great red zone target there. So he's pretty reasonably priced. I mean, I think 4,500 on DK. It's going to make him pretty highly owned there. It just seems too good for that price. So I think you have to definitely consider Hunter Henry in a great spot against Jacksonville. They can't really cover anyone, it seems like. There's not really a pass rush to worry about. And they really set him up quite a few good plays for Hunter Henry. So I definitely like him. Mike Williams can run deep and kind of clear out a lot of space underneath for him. And they really have to pay attention to Keenan Allen. So Hunter Henry, I think, will be open for a lot of good plays here.
I do like Hunter Henry. And right in that same price range on DraftKings, I want to mention Gronkowski. He's $100 more. He's $4,600. And just a reminder to folks that this game is now on the main slate, Tampa and Las Vegas. It is not on the FanDuel main slate. So if you want to play Gronk and you're excited about how last week he kind of got back in the groove, got in the end zone, he's got his legs under him a little bit here. He's remembering what the NFL is all about, and he finally got back in the end zone. You could go with him. He's, as I said, 4,600, sort of middle of the road matchup against Las Vegas, but it is a total of 52 on BetUS, so another high-scoring game. But if you're going to go cheaper than Henry, one guy I want to mention is Schultz for Dallas. He's stepped up here, and although Washington is number 2 against the pass actually this year, they do give up points to tight ends. It's the 5th best matchup for tight ends, and he's only 3,900 on DraftKings. So there's a guy that I would consider under 4,000 on DraftKings.
Yeah, another guy that's looking like he's going to get more usage this week is Jared Cook for the New Orleans Saints, just because they have all their star receivers out. And Jared Cook obviously is going to have way more rapport with Drew Brees now that Jared Cook looks like he's back mostly healthy. So look for him to have a pretty good game. He seems really cheap on DraftKings at 4,300. Where on FanDuel they priced him up at 6,100. So I thought that was kind of interesting there. But yeah, I definitely like Jared Cook here as well. Also, I'm kind of going back to Logan Thomas. Talked about him a little bit this year. He had a pretty decent game, and I like his rapport with Kyle Allen. He's one of those main targets. The Washington wide receiver core is pretty banged up outside of Terry McLaurin. They don't really have anyone. So Logan Thomas is just a big target out there that Kyle Allen can drop the ball down to. And he made a couple big plays down the field last week in their game last week, and he's going against Dallas. So, everyone likes to target the Dallas defense there. So I think that he can have a good game. And over there on DraftKings, near minimum price at $3,500 and $5,000 on FanDuel. I think he's going to be really low owned on FanDuel, but I think it's a good play there as well. So that's another guy I like.
Excellent. I'm going to mention a couple GPP plays here to finish it out. Ian Thomas is one for Carolina against New Orleans, and that has been the number 1 matchup for tight ends. So Thomas is pure GPP for me at 3,000. He's not a high volume guy, but there is no better matchup. And, Carolina's got to fight and find an edge and find a way to get in the end zone. So, if there's ever going to be a week for 5 for 50 and a touchdown or 2, I think this is it for Thomas.
Yeah, and then I could go even deeper there with the punt play. This is like, beyond GPP. You can go with the complete punt play. Harrison Bryant, the rookie tight end for the Cleveland Browns, going up against Cincinnati. He's got a good matchup. All of a sudden, Austin Hooper popped up with an appendicitis. He's out, for a week or two. And they run a lot of 2 tight end sets, which means him, they're going to be on the field a lot here. So I know they have the other athletic tight end who's really good there as well. But
Njoku,
I think, Njoku. But Harrison Bryant is the pure receiving tight end, and he's like a big slot tight end that just goes out and runs a lot of routes. So he's going to get the most routes and the most targets he's had all year. And you can get him at minimal price, $4,400 on FanDuel and $2,500 on DK. And he doesn't need to do much to pay that off. And even if he doesn't produce and doesn't do anything, you're gonna be loaded at the other positions because you just paid $2,500 for someone. So I think he's a good punt play here at the tight end position. Harrison Bryant from the Cleveland Browns.
Excellent. Well, great breakdown as always, Shane. We want to invite folks to come in as members. There's still time, of course, here before kickoff on Sunday. We'll get you those full lineups on FanDuel that you can just plug and play. Get you the coach's clipboard on DraftKings. We've been having a lot of fun, a lot of success. Awesome group of members that we have in Discord, chatting up all the sports. So it's a tremendous environment. We'd love to have you join us. In terms of YouTube, please hit that like button, as this is the podcast that's in front of the paywall, and you will get notified also of the when the shows post. So we've got the if you haven't seen it yet, we've got the quarterback podcast already posted for the main slate, the running back specific podcast, and then later tonight we're going to record the primetime podcast, previewing the Sunday night, Monday night games. That's a regular show for us, and then we also do a show Wednesday night for the Thursday game, and Thursday for the main slate where we go game by game. So we invite you to subscribe to the channel so you get all those podcast notifications throughout the week. And then on social media, we'd love to interact with you. You can find all of us at DFS Coach Talk on Twitter. You can find Shane at DET Sports Shane. I am over there at Language Olympic, and our fearless leader, the coach, is available at JoeSarvadi. Charity of choice at DFS Coach Talk is mambaon3.org. Also want to thank our presenting sponsor here one more time, betus.com.pa. Terrific partners. That's the place to go for all your sports wagering and casino action. Shane, any final thoughts here about wide receivers and tight ends for week 7?
No, I think that if you're not playing Harrison Bryant, I think you can go to Njoku over there because they're trying to trade him. So now that I'm thinking about the narrative, if you're trying to trade him and the trade deadline is like next week, and you want to show that he's good trade bait there, right? So they could target Njoku, and he's also near minimal price. So now that I'm thinking about these Cleveland tight ends and I'm thinking about the trade situation, the fact they don't like him, but they could put him in the game plan to up his trade value a little bit.
Right. They're going to like him for another week or two.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
yeah,
an interesting narrative there that I'm thinking of.
Oh, I love the narrative. So
Yep.
Awesome stuff. We'll wrap it up here, and we appreciate all of you for joining us. So on behalf of Shane Caldwell and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I am Andrew Hansen. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in with us again next time as we look to crush it in DFS.